I was with the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security, and somebody introduced me to the opportunity to jump right into the organization to see how they could help us through a number of things I was working on. Primarily interested in enhancing public and private coordination, because in my job as the Director of Preparedness, I wanted to begin to influence things like food distribution and other activities that were critical for both recovery and preparedness. Immediately, the opportunity to see who was involved helped, because you were beginning to network with those private sector players in areas like energy, food, all the critical sectors that we're now so concerned about. So I was seeing benefits immediately. I was meeting people, moving forward, beginning to coordinate on a whole series of activities, major help. Too often, emergency management was in a closed box. We'd go to the private sector when we needed something, as opposed to looking at the private sector as a means to build this inherent capability to prepare and respond to disaster. So, to me, that's the key. So a couple of major examples. On food distribution alone, the ability for the consortium to bring me into contact as a state representative with major food providers and begin to talk about what we've done in food distribution in our state and how we could use that regionally was incredibly beneficial. And I found it working as I sat in emergency operating centers. I had the ability to call food sector representatives directly, have them sit in the EOC that we're operating, and be able to make some significant improvements as time moved on. Too often we miss those opportunities. And a major effort on the utility side that the All Hazards Consortium has really been pushing for a number of years, and I was really happy to say I was there early on when we began to do this meeting with utilities, understanding where they had problems with us and vice versa, has led to one of the best information sharing platforms that's utilized every time a major storm is moving up the coast or across the country. I mean, we're coordinating with multiple states, multiple energy companies, making decisions based on shared information. And that shared information piece is one of those elements that the consortium, provides and continues to provide by enhancing the tools of how we share information in a secure environment that allows the private sector to want to be a key player in the entire operation. So all of this, again, is just a great opportunity to highlight what's important and get it done. Early on, for example, when I was operating in Sandy, I was trying to figure out, how do I determine what gas stations are open and closed? How do we work with the providers from both the fuel distribution perspective and also from what open transportation systems were there, from the All Hazards Consortium, contacts with a number of organizations, including yous. We were able to literally tap into what was happening at individual gas stations through the utilization of credit cards. Who was open? Were they operational? That information was shared. We mapped it out, shared it with our decision makers in the state, and we had a baseline data of where we can tell people to go, what stations were open, and that would not have happened without the ability to share information in a platform where the players knew each other ahead of time, have networked, just allowing us to move forward. And I think that the biggest attribute of being part of the All Hazards Consortium, and I think it's a key word, is trust. It's trusted relationships. And I think, you may not trust somebody at first. In the energy sector, we sat down initially, it was pretty rough, but if you keep sitting down, keep sharing information, and you share it in an environment where you're really honest, saying, I just want to know, and I'm not going to talk to a million people. And I think that really, really helped. The energy sector now is one of our biggest fans with the All Hazards Consortium. Again, and those relationships are long lasting, and they're far better than the relationships you'll get if you're in the public sector working from one administration to the next, because the players on the private sector side are in place. It's the relationships of those key workers within the organization that make a difference. And being there, having that person sitting in that desk in the EOC who's worked with the consortium before, who's worked with the energy sector reps, that's a foundation of getting things done. So if the All Hazards Consortium has done anything that was of critical importance, the one thing that I would say, and I'd use the word a second time, is trust. they develop trust. People are able to talk to each other because it was a demonstrated, ability to share in an environment where you were trusting the person you were giving the information to. And again, that's the foundation of a lot of our present work that's ongoing right now. I think it's important to realize that the consortium never and tries to avoid trying to solve every problem that's out there. We are really solution-based, and I think that is absolutely critical. I mean, the problem that emergency management generally has, if you talk about resiliency, there's a million things you can do out there. But if you can identify that singular issue that will allow the private sector to want to work with public and state officials, you've got something really good going on. And examples I can give are numerous. We were working on distribution for a pandemic just before the COVID event, meeting with major providers and suppliers, and those relationships that were built were critical now to organizations like NYU, Langone, and others. And it was simply because we were working with these folks. We were working with the federal folks, just talking about distribution, one key issue. So I think that's important. We're not trying to solve the world's problems. We're trying to solve those singular issues that can make life better for a company and organization, all for the purpose of improving how we work to respond to major disasters and help people recover.